Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, thoughts on the passing of Justice Antonin Scalia and what comes next for the U.S. Supreme Court. Also tonight, we'll switch gears and get an update on the Valley's commercial real estate conditions. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The death of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia on Saturday came as a shock to the country, to the court, and to those who knew and worked with Justice Scalia. Former Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, who served with Scalia, released a statement today stating, quote, "I am deeply saddened to learn of the passing of my dear friend and colleague, Justice Antonin Scalia. Nino was a tireless public servant who left an indelible mark on the court and our jurisprudence. His gifts of wisdom, wit, and wordsmithing were unparalleled, and he will be sorely missed." That sentiment was shared today by Arizona Supreme Court Justice Clint Bolick, who argued a number of cases before Scalia and the High Court.
I had the great privilege of arguing before Justice Scalia, which is definitely an intimidating exercise, and meeting him on multiple occasions as well, and considered myself a groupie as well. Anytime I could see him speak, I took advantage of the opportunity. He had a huge impact on issues touching every American, from free speech to private property rights to federalism to social issues and criminal issues as well. But I'd say his greatest contribution was articulating the philosophy of the original intent of the Constitution as a contract where the duty of the judge is to interpret it according to its plain meaning and not what the judge wishes the meaning was. He's an incredible giant, he's an incredible man, and his departure from the court will have a seismic impact on our nation.
Scalia's cause of death has been ruled a heart attack. He was 79 and had been on the court for close to 30 years. His passing sets up a major political fight to replace him and leaves many questions about upcoming Supreme Court cases and how the death of a sitting justice will impact how the High Court does business. Joining us now is ASU law professor Paul Bender. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Nice to see you, Ted.
The impact of Antonin Scalia on the U.S. Supreme Court.
Not nearly as great as people are saying. It's very hard to think of an area of the law, except perhaps the Confrontation Clause of the Constitution, which most people don't know anything about, in which he had a big impact on decisions. He was a dissenter. I mean, just think of the cases recently, like the same-sex marriage case where he issued a vigorous dissent. He wanted to overrule Roe and Wade, which never happened. He disagreed with fundamental doctrines of constitutional law, and he lost in most of those cases. So it's very hard to think of an opinion or a decision during Scalia's tenure which he really influenced, except for his vote, which will be part of the law in the future. In fact, it's hard to think of any that are part of the law today.
What about the definition of the Second Amendment and the right of the individual to bear arms?
And not only his view, that was not a big thing for him, that issue, but he was in the majority. But even there, he wrote a 5-4 majority opinion, which was, I think, not nearly as broadly protective of gun rights as he would have wanted to write. But he needed 5 votes, and the 5th vote was Justice Kennedy, and I don't think Justice Kennedy was willing to do that. So if you read the Heller case carefully, it leaves enormous room for gun regulation.
As far as intellectual impact on the court, yes, known mostly for writing dissenting opinions, some very acerbic. Lots of folks say that they were very well written, almost artful, also could be downright nasty at times to not only the case but to his fellow justices, but just the whole intellectual impact.
Well, he was a very interesting mind. There's no question about it. His opinions are much more interesting to read than anybody else's on the current court. And he did insult his colleagues almost always. When it's hard to think of a dissent of his that doesn't insult somebody. I don't think they took it personally. It was just the way he did things. He had very colorful language, and he had very interesting ideas, most of which are way out of the mainstream of American constitutional law.
Big on originalism in constitutional law, big on textualism in interpreting statutes. What do those things mean?
Both of those are very controversial. Originalism means, as Clint Bolick just said, doing what the people who framed the Constitution would have done at that time with the issue. That is a theory that just does not make sense. Do you think Brown and Board of Education was correctly decided?
Yes.
Yeah, well, if you believe in originalism, it was not correctly decided. The people who drafted the 14th Amendment accepted racially segregated schools. Do you think it's unconstitutional to prohibit women from being lawyers?
Do they go back? But I thought that was more of a Bork kind of avenue as opposed to Scalia.
Both of them.
So you're saying he was on the same
Oh
path?
yeah, Bork in some ways was Scalia's mentor. I mean, they both shared that view. I mean, I go back to the Supreme Court in 1870, 1880 decided, no one disagreed, that a state could bar women from being lawyers because the framers of the 14th Amendment didn't think that the 14th Amendment prohibited that kind of sexual discrimination. Now, if you're an originalist and you really mean it, then you'd have to stick by that. But nobody wants to stick by that.
Can you be an originalist and also a textualist, which apparently he was, and find in the text things that would get around those kinds of issues?
No, if you're an originalist, you do what the originators of the language thought it meant, even if the text might say something different. That's what originalism means. Textualism, yeah, can be quite different. You look at the text and you can get almost anything out of it. Scalia was controversial in that area because he said only look at the text. Don't pay any attention to legislative history, for example. And that's a controversial point. Again, that was his view. I don't know that anybody else on the court, maybe Justice Thomas shared that, that you don't care about the context of a statute. You don't care for the reasons why it was passed. You don't care for its place in history. You just look at the words. Well, that doesn't make any sense either. Words should not be viewed in a vacuum. And so those are two main threads of his jurisprudence, which he very ably articulated, but they just don't hold any water, and they're not going to be part of American constitutional law in the future.
Well, you say that, and yet he inspired a generation of conservative lawyers. They're out there everywhere, and they believe in these things as well. I mean, it didn't seem like we heard much about original intent at all until, I mean, obviously.
For good reason.
Well, but I mean, it didn't seem like we heard that until the last generation or so. Now, even it seems like the liberal justices are bringing it up.
I don't know about the liberal justices. They shouldn't. Bork started that, I think, and that was one of the main reasons Bork didn't get confirmed, because he really stuck by his originalism. And so he said, Griswold in Connecticut, for example, which said that married people had a constitutional right to use contraceptives to prevent conception. And Bork said he thought that decision was wrong. They didn't have that right. Well, and I think he was probably right, certainly right, that the people who drafted the 14th Amendment did not think that they were saying that states could not prohibit contraceptives. They were not saying the states could not prohibit abortions. So if you stick by originalism, you come out with some results that most people, almost all people, will not accept today. And Bork and Scalia were the only two people I know, maybe Ted Cruz, who really stick to that. Now, it's true, they did inspire and continue to inspire a lot of younger lawyers and judges. And that's a strain of constitutional interpretation and approach. But it's never been the majority. It was rejected during Scalia's tenure on the court repeatedly, even though he was an enormously able advocate for that kind of stuff. And there's nobody left on the court, except maybe Clarence Thomas, who really believes in that. And even he doesn't believe in that the way Scalia did. So it's interesting. It was very provocative. He's a very, very interesting mind. A lot of good ideas, a lot of ideas worth talking about, but not really a major impact on the law itself.
That's interesting. Now, as far as the court currently 4-4, what happens when what's next?
Well, if a case is 4-4, which it can be, with only 8 justices, then that will be affirmed by an equally divided court. If the court hears argument and they split 4-4, or have already heard argument, and they split 4-4, and they want to decide the case, it would be affirmed by an equally divided court. They will not write an opinion. The lower decision will stand. They don't have to do that. The one thing they can do, and have done in the past when these things have arisen, is to set the case down for re-argument, so that a case that they've just heard, for example, that maybe was 5-4, and now is 4-4 because he left, he cannot participate in any cases from now on. I mean, even if he voted in them, even if he wrote the opinion, he might have written a majority opinion 2 days ago, 3 days, last Thursday, that was going to come down today. It will not come down under his name. He can't do that.
Interesting.
The Supreme Court is very stern about that. So if it's 4-4, then the court could say, we really want this to be decided by a full court, and they can ask for to have it re-argued next year. There's a problem with that now, because when is next year? When is the court going to have a full complement? It could, if the Senate persists in not paying any attention to Obama's nominations, and even if they pay attention, they're going to reject them. So there wouldn't be an appointment until late January. Well, it takes 2 or 3 months for, even in the best of times, for an appointment to be confirmed. So that's next March or April. There won't be 9 justices for almost all of next term either. So if you're gonna set it over for re-argument, you may be setting it over for re-argument 2 years in the future. The court's going to be reluctant to do that.
I was going to say, it sounds like the court would be, and in a sense, the courts of appeal would become little Supreme Courts.
Well, yeah, that's always true when they deny cert.
Right.
It's like denying cert, really,
Yeah.
to 4-4. So the court has a big problem. This is unusual, that somebody dies suddenly in the middle of a term, who's somebody like Scalia, who writes a lot of opinions. I mean, all those dissents he's already written, what are they going to do with them?
There are critics out there who say that the president should wait until the election, that a liberal replacing a conservative icon is simply wrong, and that you would have to wait for a Democratic vote for the presidency, then the next president choose. Of course, who knows what happens then. But because of the nature of his standing, Scalia's standing, you can't just have a Democratic governor put in a liberal.
Democratic president.
Democrat president.
Well, you can. I mean, I think Obama has to nominate somebody, but the Senate does not have to confirm him. And I would certainly understand if the conservative Senate would not want to confirm somebody who Obama would nominate, and I can understand that Obama would not want to nominate somebody who the conservative Senate would confirm. So the chances are very, very great that you're not going to see a replacement until there's a new president. This is a new problem. This did not happen 100 years ago. The court today is split along partisan political lines. The court themselves are not political partisans, partisans, but the parties think they are. And the parties are so split in a way they never have been, as far as I know, before, along really political party lines. So that you get things like, we can't let the Democrats put in we have to have a Republican, the Democrat, we have to have that's not the way it's supposed to work. You're supposed to pick somebody who is highly qualified and acceptable to a broad range of people. These days, there's almost nobody who is acceptable to a broad range of people. That's a big problem with our system.
Is that among, I'm trying to get the legacy now of Antonin Scalia. I mean, I've actually read, we know it's a Kennedy court, pragmatically speaking, but I've heard that because of the conservative nature of the court and what we've had in the past, I've read where people say that it was at its base a Scalia court.
No.
You disagree?
No, because Scalia came on the court wanting to lead a revolution, to reverse the Warren Court's jurisprudence of expansion of individual rights. That's what he wanted to do. He didn't do it. He never got the votes to do it. That would have been his legacy, but it didn't happen. And in fact, his legacy is it was rejected, forcefully rejected, as in the same-sex marriage case. Scalia wanted to get rid of substantive due process, which is responsible for the abortion case and the same-sex marriage case and the contraception case and other cases like that. He tried as hard as he could to do that, and he never, I don't think he really ever had 3 other votes, but he certainly never had 4 other votes. Before we leave that, there is one option the president formally has, which I don't think he's going to take or should take, which is to make a recess appointment.
The recess appointment, yeah, that's not good.
He could make a recess appointment today who could sit on the court tomorrow because he can do it all by himself. I don't think that's a good idea for lots of different reasons. But it's happened in the past. But it hasn't happened in a past like this where the things are so politically charged. So I can't imagine that he would do that. I don't think he should do that.
All right, Paul, good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here, Ted.
Expand your horizon with the Arizona Horizon website. To get there, go to azpbs.org. Click on the Arizona Horizon tab at the top of the screen. Once there, you can access many features, watch interviews by clicking on the video button. You can also find out what's on Arizona Horizon for the coming week. If you would like an RSS feed, a podcast, or want to buy a video, that's all on the website too. Want to learn about specific topics like immigration or the legislature? You can visit our special web sections. Show your support for Arizona Horizon at azpbs.org/Arizona Horizon.
Arizona's commercial real estate market ranges from office space hotspots in Mesa, Chandler, and especially Tempe to a statewide industrial vacancy rate that isn't quite as robust. Here now to break down Arizona's commercial real estate market is John Rosenberg, president of the commercial real estate firm Levrose, and Mark Stapp, executive director of the Master of Real Estate Development program at ASU's W.P. Carey School of Business. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us. Define commercial real estate.
Well, pretty much anything that's not residential, so office, retail, industrial, and then multifamily, which is residential, but it's more investment real estate. So
Overview of what we saw last year and so far this year.
Overview, last year was good. This year, so far, looks like it should be a little better than last year, probably our best year post-recession. In most, you look at each market segment, and each one of them is growing strongly in their own way.
Slow but steady growth, I hear that a lot in a variety of economic sectors.
Right.
Why the slow part?
I think, well, talking about each segment, I think if you look at the office segment, the slowness was due to the fact that a lot of buildings were set to be developed pre-recession and were continuing to be developed during the recession, so now they're finally getting to the point of filling up. We're finally at a point of job numbers, I think, are 97% of what they were that were lost during the recession. So we're starting to see those the absorption take place and getting the vacancy rate down to a good number. Retail, same thing, slow. You saw housing stop. Retail typically follows rooftops, so when that happens, the retail does not fill up.
Let's get back to that office that John mentioned, and it sounds as though McClintock to Priest, maybe rural to Priest in Tempe, that is a super hot market there. Is anything else even close?
That's obviously that's the geographic core of Metro Phoenix, and there's a bunch of drivers. There's some other submarkets as you get north on Scottsdale Road around the air park. There's some of the office space that's along I-17 because we see some of the insurance business, some of the recent news there. And certainly downtown Phoenix is improving greatly as well. But those are the core employment centers.
And as far as light rail, I know Mesa's now got light rail there. Is that making an impact as far as commercial real estate is concerned?
Yeah, it's having an impact in urban form. And so you see a number of national trends about commercial real estate. And one of them is this densification, urbanization. And it's providing a framework for development to focus around. And that's really a reflection of how metropolitan Phoenix is maturing, because we've got generational changes, which is another one. So this emerging millennial population is having an effect. You also have how people are working, because if technology is changing, and light rail and transit play into both of those trends substantially. So,
okay.
I was going to say, so lifestyle kinds of things.
Gotcha. You had mentioned retail. Are we seeing some of these strip malls that have been ghost towns for so long, are they starting to come to life?
They're starting to. I think what you're seeing in most of those are the types of businesses that are really going to be more servicing the residential around there. So you're seeing a lot more restaurants, you're seeing a lot more food, salons, spas, nails, dry cleaning, so servicing. So those are starting to fill back in.
Restaurants are kind of a prime driver now, aren't they? They're doing
they
pretty
sure
well.
Are. They sure are, yeah. They create neighborhoods.
Is that a surprise?
I don't know if it's a surprise. I think that people want the experiential neighborhood. So I think what you're seeing in downtown Phoenix Central Corridor, downtown Scottsdale, Tempe, Gilbert, a lot of restaurants are driving that.
As far as the hottest, it's from the report that I looked at, it looks like multifamily housing might be the hottest sector out there. Talk to us about that.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's been a greater demographic in history for multifamily than there is today. You've got millennials that are, I think in 1960, the statistic was 65% of 18 to 32-year-olds were married. Today, that number is less than 25%. So they're living, you know, in that urban core a little bit more. They're getting married later, so apartments are strong and probably going to be for a while.
Is that affecting other sectors?
Well, I'm going to add something to that too, because baby boomers at the same time are downsizing. And so you see the combination of both of those population segments driving demand. In multifamily, I get asked the question all the time, is this a bubble? And I don't think so, because we continue to grow, and there's other factors in the market that have retarded the single family housing segment. And some of it is choice, some of it is constraint, but that's really driven the multifamily. And again, it's back to lifestyle.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the hot spot. We talked about some hot office space spots. Industrial vacancy rates, I think the report described them as fickle. What's going on out there?
You know, industrial is built for very specific purposes sometimes. And so you look at different segments. We had a very hot industrial market for some of the large distribution and fulfillment centers a couple of years ago. That has slowed down. We've seen a lot more demand for that small and mid-size industrial. And I think that's a really good sign, because it reflects the fact that the economy is adding smaller businesses that are growing, and we see companies needing to move out of space. But you know, real estate's big and clunky stuff, and once it's there, it's hard to do anything with it. And so as the industrial market emerges, you're going to see, I think, some more demand fill that space up.
We're going to see maybe like the 303 in the West Valley. Is that where the industrial market might be the strongest?
Eventually. I mean, airport right now is obviously strong. We're seeing it in parts of Tempe, obviously parts of Phoenix. Scottsdale Air Park is busy. So, you know, I think eventually you're going to get that. And to Mark's point, you know, some of those mid-sized 20 to 100,000 square foot boxes that are filling up right now is probably suppressing a little bit of the 5 to 10,000 square foot spaces, but eventually those will come.
As far as healthcare and medical, would seem to be optimistic, wouldn't it? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah. They're you know, that again, great tenant. If I'm looking to buy a building, that's a great tenant. You know, they spend a lot of money in tenant improvements. Typically, they don't like to move a lot. You know, it's servicing the neighborhood. So, you know, again, it's really population driven also as to where the employees are, where you want to buy your properties.
And I would imagine we got the Children's Hospital, Phoenix Children's Hospital, new trauma center, new ER. You got the ASU Biodesign Institute, this whole biomedical corridor up near Mayo. Promising?
Oh, very promising. When you look at the infrastructure that's put in place, I mean, it's a big focus for the city of Phoenix, the relationship with ASU and the Mayo Clinic. When you look at the distance to the airport, because a lot of this are people that are coming here for very specific reasons, accessibility to the airport, very quick, very easy. We've got a lot of available land in a very strong emerging market there. I mean, we're really lucky because of that relationship with Mayo.
Last question. Biggest concern as you see for the commercial real estate market?
Well, I think the kind of the Amazon, I don't know if we want to call it Amazonification of the world, but I think that, you know, we're seeing a lot of services, a lot of things can now be bought online. So I think from the retail market, you want to avoid those types of tenants or buildings that are too strong on that have that risk. I think from the office market, you know, what I would keep an eye for are, again, service type law firms, medical, as you mentioned, accounting, things like that are really going to service, you know, the influx of people that are moving to the state.
All right, very good. Gentlemen, good to have you here.
Thank you
for joining us.
Thank you.
Tuesday on Arizona Horizon, hear about a range of issues impacting women veterans, and we'll talk about a program designed to keep middle schoolers on track to graduate. It's at 5:30 and 10 on the next Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.